Today's build, I'm going to be building a pair of practice wooden rapiers. Now, Sue and I are in an online class for Northern Italian style rapier with specifically studying Capoferro and Fabris. Um, Now, as a stage combat guy, I've got steel rapiers, but they're for stage, so they do not have the safety tip on the end. And even if I went out and spent the money on some sparring blades, which I'm probably never going to use again after this class, we don't have any face masks. We've got eye protection, but I'd rather not mess around with steel sparring blades without something more substantial than that. I've got some options. First of all, I've got this lightsaber here. Now, if I'm on stage as a Jedi, or if I'm teaching some lightsaber technique, I've got some Force Effects lightsabers that I'm rather fond of. But I was in a no-budget Star Wars parody film a few years back, and the special effects guy said it actually made his job harder if the lightsaber actually emitted its own light. So I went to Lowe's and I got a 4-foot, 3/4 inch dowel and made a handle out of some PVC pipe and some heat shield tape. Love that metallic tape, by the way. Now this is pretty good for rapier technique. There's a couple of problems though. First of all, there's almost no guard at all, which makes connecting with the hilt a little weird. The other problem is there's no edge, so indexing is a little more subtle, and Sue's still kind of a beginner, so I think it first of all needs to feel more obvious, and without the guard, our instructor can't tell as easily as I can standing in the room with her when her indexing isn't quite right, and for some rapier technique that's fairly important. So this works, but we've also got a pair of these Serio Farrell wooden broadswords. These work pretty well. The handle is not round, so you can feel where the edge is to index it. And we've got a crossguard here, so the instructor can see how it's being held, and you can interact with it. There's a couple of problems with this, though. First of all, just like with the lightsaber, without the guard to put your finger over, you're not really using a rapier grip, and the guard's a little bit big to do that with this. And on top of that, Sue hasn't complained that it's too heavy, but I think it's a bit heavy for rapier technique, and I don't know, I get the impression that the weight might be a problem. So I wanted to see how cheaply I could make a training sword. I got some 3/4 inch dowel because I like the size of the lightsaber blades. I went with 3-foot lengths instead of 4. The result is going to be a relatively short rapier, but that's good for a couple of reasons. First of all, there is never enough room in the house for this type of thing, so the shorter blade will help with that. Also, my 6-year-old is about yay tall and is starting to express interest in learning to use a sword, and so the shorter rapier blade I think will be just about right. I went with oak. I think the lightsaber blade is poplar because I'm going to be drilling a hole through the center of this for the cross piece. I got some 1/4 inch dowel here, so I'm a little concerned that that's going to weaken it. Let's get to work and see what I run into. Now, I did post a question on the Facebook Hive Mind about the best way to drill a straight hole through a round dowel. Got a lot of great advice, a lot of great answers, almost all of which assumed tools that I don't have. I have a hand drill, I have a meter stick, I'm sure I could find a Sharpie. I could not find my clamps, so I'm gonna eyeball it. Now I am gonna want a 1/4 inch hole, or maybe a skosh smaller, to jam in the 1/4 inch dowel for the cross piece. I'm going to start with my smallest bit, because I think that will be easier to get centered, and then I'll go through the hole with larger and larger bits. First, I want to mark where I want crossguard. I don't think I'm going to bother with a pommel at all. This is light enough that it doesn't really need it, and it's already awfully short, so I'm not going to use up any of the length of that. So let's put that right there. Okay, so that is marked. That is not a problem I anticipated. Cross guards, I think I measured it on my rapier to be about that wide. So let's cut it there. For the record, this is a worse injury than I've gotten in my last 5 years of stunt work. So I was curious if I could drill it one size small and just jam this in, and it doesn't look like it's going to work, so I got to go up to the full 1/4 inch drill bit. Cool. I did consider putting some glue on these in there, and not to hold them in place, but to add some strength to the dowel, because you know, that's 1/4 inch hole in a 3/4 inch dowel rod, so that's 1/3 of the diameter, and since it's a round cross section, I've removed more than 1/3 of the material from that cross section. But I don't think that's going to be a problem. I think that's good and solid. Although in retrospect, I might end up gluing that to hold them in place anyway, so they don't slide around. But at the moment, I think that's pretty good. All right. In retrospect, I should put this end made this on the handle because I'm going to be covering the handle with tape anyway. Now, I do want to shape the edges a little bit to make indexing more apparent. So, that's why I bought this. All right, had I taken a moment to try to anticipate how long it would take to reshape oak, sanding it by hand, yeah, I should have anticipated this issue. So, I think this is probably a perfectly fine shape. All right, I think the next thing to work on is the handle. So the guard gives some good indication on indexing, but I think, well, first of all, 3/4 inch is awfully narrow for a handle. So I'd like to give it some more volume. I'd also like to feel the index a little bit better here. So I think it's time for some paracord and gaff tape. Now, I've got some paracord here. I don't want to just wrap it in paracord because it's gonna get bigger, but it's gonna stay cylindrical. I want to shape it a little bit. So, how do I do that? Oh, I think first things first. If I'm gonna glue the crossguard, I should do it before I bury it. Now, if I'm remembering my junior high shop class correctly, wood glue is just Elmer's white glue with something in it to make it dry faster. I'm not in a hurry, so this white glue should be fine. Okay. Let's tack that down with a strip. Side. Yeah. It keeps reopening. The sore thumb is so difficult to ignore. It sticks out like a... There you go. It's still awfully thin, awfully narrow, but you can definitely feel the shape of the handle. So I think for what we're doing, this will be fine. I think if I mean, it's not like we're sparring with them, so cool. Just in case anyone is of the mistaken impression that I think I know what I'm doing, I'm making this up as I go. It just seems to be coming together with good luck and good intentions. Cool. Now, here's the thing about rapiers. There's usually something protecting that front finger. I went through Lowe's from one end of the store to the other, and I didn't find anything to either act as a cup hilt or to just like a half a ring that I could somehow attach maybe to either side. I'm tempted to get a coat hanger and maybe shape it around a soup can to get a good, nice arc, and then wrap it around the keons there and maybe staple it and so it stays in place or something. But I mean, the fact is, we're not going to be sparring with them. It doesn't need to be that good. I'm going to try something. You know what? I think that might work just fine, at least for today. Some tape around that and call it good. It's kind of a lousy shape for a rapier guard, but it's shaped to shed the incoming blade onto my arm, but like I said, we're not sparring with them. This is utterly ridiculous. I love it. There we go. Cool. That'll be great. Until someone cuts themselves on the plastic. That is utterly ridiculous, but I love it. Sue and I just recorded our homework for this week, and I am ridiculously pleased with these silly contraptions. So, very happy with them. So these turned out way better than I had any right to hope they would. if anyone's got any suggestions on a better looking cup hilt, please leave them in the comments. I'm all over that. Aesthetics is going to be a low bar to overcome. Practicality is going to be a pretty high bar. These were 10 cents a pop and they work fine. If anyone's got a recommendation for a knuckle guard, I'm all over that too. If anyone has any recommendations on how to be a safer woodworker, I would be grateful. I'm particularly curious what the proper way is to cut a dowel rod when I don't have a clamp or a workbench. Holding it on a bucket is apparently the wrong way to do it. So these came in at a little over $5 a piece. The expensive part was the oak dowel. They were $4.50 a piece. I think I spent like $2 on the 1/4-inch dowel. Ended up using about half of it. The tape I had, the paracord I had. And honestly, the oak was probably overkill. These are really solid. Even when I'm teaching Mara stage swordplay, it's a lot easier to tell a story with cuts than with lunges. So, and the purpose of a wooden sword is it's what you give to the beginner who doesn't know what they're doing yet. So, a beginner who hasn't learned control, cutting and slamming these two together, that'll be the real test about how durable these are. But yeah, unless someone's like sparring with them, I think they ought to be fine. In fact, the 4-foot poplar dowels would probably also be fine if someone wanted to make one of these that's a more accurate rapier length. The handle's still a little small. It's more of a it feels more like a small sword handle than a rapier handle. But I mean, if that's a problem, you just give it more wraps with the paracord. If you have a project that you would like to see me try, go ahead and leave that in the comments too. And I will see you guys next time.